Good evening, everyone. I'll now call to order this April 1st, 2025 meetings of Committee of Council. Mr. Harris, can we please begin with a roll call of members?
Yes, Madam President. Mr. Med.
Here.
Mr. Arroyo.
Here.
Mr. Cleese.
Here.
Ms. Craig. Ms. Diaz.
Here.
Mr. Hirsch.
Here.
And President Baker.
Here. I expect Councilor Craig presently, but she is excused at this time. A few reminders for everyone at the top of the meeting. Good evening. I ask that you please silence your phones and devices if you haven't done so already. And a reminder that this meeting and its participants are being recorded. Tonight we have meetings of committees of council. There are no general public comment periods during this meeting. However, committee chairs will call for comments from the public for legislative items, which means bills and resolutions that appear on the agenda. Comments in those times are limited to 3 minutes per speaker and must begin with your name and block of residence for our meeting record. I understand that there may be many of you in the room this evening to hear the report to council during our Public Safety Committee meeting. I want to thank you all for being here, and I also want to be clear that this report requested by council is informational and not legislative, as I mentioned before, and therefore there will not be public comment taken after that report. Before we begin committee meetings, we have the first item on our agenda is the approval of the March 3rd, 2025 committee meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the minutes. Are there any council comments on the minutes? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Med.
Aye.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Mr. Cleese.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch.
Aye.
And President Baker.
Aye. All right, our first committee meeting this evening is Finance. Councilor Arroyo.
Thank you, Council President. We have 3 items on the agenda for this evening's committee meeting. The first is the budget update for the year end of 2024 and the first quarter of 2025. I'd like to invite Director Campbell to come up for the budget update.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So you have received a summary and a detailed budget report for both the year end of 2024 as well as the first 2 months of 2025, not quite the quarter, because today is the first day of April. March books are not yet closed, so the latest month we have to report on is February. We're going to review both of these reports this evening, though my main focus is going to be on the 2024 year end report. Just as a little reminder, per the Home Rule Charter, we will now start to provide you with monthly reports, both the summary and the detailed written reports that you receive this week. Because we need time to close the month, we anticipate that you'll receive those reports from the previous month by the 20th of the following month. So you would receive the March reports by April 20th. And in addition, we plan to present a budget update report such as this at a council committee meeting once per quarter. Because this process is new and really just beginning, I welcome any feedback for what you would like to see in these reports in the future and how to make the process better. We'll continue to refine it as we go. So to the reports tonight, I'd like to start with the 2024 reports. As I said, I'll mainly be focused on those this evening. I'm going to speak from the summary reports that you received, but I'm happy to answer questions or to take questions about the detailed reports as well. I want to begin by saying that these are unaudited reports. If you're familiar with audits, you know that during audits there are journal entries needed or other adjustments that may result in different numbers included in the final details of the budget, but those are details, and the numbers that you see this evening will remain approximately the same. So overall, we ended the year very well. Most of the departments and the enterprise funds ended the year better than budgeted. In the general fund, that's the first page of the summary report that you received. You can see that our budget was approximately $73.4 million for the year. This is for the general fund, not for the enterprise funds. On the top of that page, you'll see the revenue. Actual revenue is showing at about $71.3 million, or approximately $2.1 million less than we budgeted. However, this number is a little bit deceiving. As you're aware, we must have a balanced budget in the general fund each year. This is a requirement. And in order to do this, sometimes we use cash reserves, either as to show a revenue, meaning that we're using some cash reserves to cover expenses, or it shows on the expense side, meaning that we're showing a surplus, so we're putting money back into the cash reserves. Cash reserves are really the opposite of other lines, so you want to see an expense, and you don't want to see the revenue coming in. Get to my notes here. So the original budget, as I said, of $73.4 million included a transfer from cash reserves of approximately $2.3 million. That was to cover expenses. And our expenses from the general fund were approximately $2.2 million less than budgeted. And some of our revenue in some of the other lines, mainly in our community planning areas, exceeded budget. So we did not need the cash reserves and ended the year with approximately $1.2 million in surplus that will go towards increasing our cash reserves. Most of the bureaus in the general fund came in under budget. This was due to a variety of reasons, but mainly savings from some staff vacancies that we had. All of the departments worked very hard to cut expenses beyond those vacancies, including using technology to figure out how to be more efficient, which helped to adjust some staffing levels as well. In the enterprise funds, 3 of the funds, water, stormwater, and trash, were budgeted to end the year in 2024 actually in a deficit. And unlike the general funds, this is allowable because these are enterprise or function as business funds. The stormwater fund did end the year with a deficit, but the deficit was approximately $400,000 less than budgeted, so it came in better than budgeted. The trash fund also ended with a deficit of approximately $70,000 more than budgeted. However, we have not yet received one grant, which is the Act 101 recycling grant. Once that is received, this deficit will be less, but we don't know what that ending amount is, so we didn't add that into this budget. The water fund was budgeted to end with a deficit of approximately $860,000. The team again worked hard to reduce this over the year, and they actually ended with a slight surplus of $700,000. And the sewer fund was budgeted to end with a surplus of approximately $1.1 million. That was the one of the 4 enterprise funds that was showing a surplus. Mainly meant to build the cash reserve there, and we ended the year with a larger surplus of about $3.9 million. This really helps to establish an emergency fund in sewer, which we haven't had. I'll talk very briefly about the February 2025 reports before I stop for questions. It is really too early in the year to say much of substance about these reports. There aren't any notable items that are standouts at this time, as there hasn't really been enough time in the year to see those trends for spending. However, I will note that some of the line items, if you're looking at the detailed lines, will look like they are already all spent. This is mainly due to encumbrances, which is really a hold that is put on funds for purchases that we know will happen at some point in the year, but it hasn't happened yet. So we've included these holds in the expense line because they will happen, but the cash might not have gone out of our accounts yet. And as we move through the year, these funds will be spent, so we're simply showing that spending from the beginning. All right, I'll stop there and ask for questions.
Thank you, Director Campbell. I'll open it up for any questions from the committee.
If I may,
Councilor Diaz?
I have just one question. There was I believe, $10 million grants for cities that may want, if they're struggling in some area, and that was by Governor Shapiro. Are you aware of that? Are you looking into that grant at all?
Yeah, I'm not sure which grant that is. You said it was for $10 million.
I think it was for $10 million. It could be for more. I just kind of took a quick glance of the fact that it did came out. I could also forward it to you.
Yeah, that would be great to see that.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Any questions from full council? Councilor Ahmed?
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Director Campbell. My question is, do we project that the revenues and taxes will meet the budget for Q1? I know it's still a little bit too early to say, but are we on pace from a revenue side?
We are. So again, it is a little bit too early in the year to talk about, but one of the things that happens is real estate taxes are collected at the beginning of the year. So those are coming in now. We'll see those increase, especially through June here. So yeah, at this point, everything's coming in as we have planned. In fact, some of the revenue again in the community planning lines is coming in a bit higher than we had projected.
Thank you. And it's good to see that, some of the losses we projected were not as heavy and we were able to mitigate some of those expenses. Do we project that those expenses will continue to see that trend in 2025 as the year goes on? Will we be able to continue to mitigate some of these expenses?
That's our goal. Yeah, I mean, we never quite know how the year is gonna turn out, but we're always looking to decrease expenses if we can, so.
Thank you. My final question is, how much was returned to the reserves last year, and where are the reserves currently at for 2025?
So when you say last year, you mean 2024?
Yes.
Okay. So it's about 1.2 million that'll be returned to that's a surplus to go into the cash reserves. We're anticipating about, over 2 million this year because of the earned income tax increase. And a lot of that, as we talked about in the budget process, is really to try to increase the cash reserves because we feel like they haven't been at a good level for emergencies that might come up.
Thank you. And that concludes my questions. And thank you for the report. I think this is helpful to have this on a monthly and quarterly basis.
Director Campbell, just to piggyback off of that, what's the recommended percentage for our reserve fund?
So it varies based on municipality. We are trying to get between 15 and 20%.
And that's of the budget?
Of the annual operating budget, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from council? Great. Thank you for the thank you for the budget update. We'll move on to the second item on the agenda, which is Administration Resolution Number 25-2025, amending the capital improvement plan funded by 2018 bonds. Director Campbell.
Yeah, just stay here for this one. The other Director Campbell is handing out some updated project details for this. So you would have received this list already in the committee packet, but this gives a few updates to the project status, which is the last column in those. Wanted to give you some of that so that you can see which projects have been completed and how that has been adjusted. So these, I'm going to talk about these. Both of them, yes, please, thank you. I'm going to talk about both of these together. That's what I was actually just getting ready to say. It's two different resolutions, one for the 2018 bonds, and the 2018 bonds is the sewer fund, and then one for the 22 bonds, those are the water funds. Yeah, as capital projects are completed or need adjustments, once the actual work on the project begins, we need to make shifts within line item allocations in each bond fund to accommodate these adjustments. And most of these adjustments require approval of the amendment from council, and that's what we're bringing to you this evening. This is a regularly occurring process. So you've received these changes in years past. We did another one of these in March 2024 at the Finance Committee meeting. It's not allocating any more money, but rather it's a request to move money between the already approved projects. It's very hard to estimate exact costs for projects and bonds, as many of the projects take many years to complete. So this allows us to close out projects that may have come in under budget and move funding to other projects that were already approved that may need more funding. So again, two different plans that require adjustments, and therefore, or two different bonds that require adjustments, and therefore two different resolutions. So for the 2025 bond, or 2018 bond funds, which is Resolution 25, 2025, we have a number of shifts that are occurring in the line items there. The shifts total about $2.3 million. You see all of the details in the 2018 GO, or General Obligation Bond Exhibit A, and those are all projects, as I mentioned, connected to the sewer funds. There's no new projects proposed in this 2018 bond financing, so all of these projects have already been approved in previous council meetings. For the 2022 bond funds, which is Resolution 26, 2025, we also have a number of shifts that are needed between the projects, as some are completed and others need additional financing. Those shifts total about $5.3 million, and those details, again, are all included in the 2022 GO Bond Exhibit A that you received. And those projects, again, are all connected to the water fund. When the 2022 bond funds were approved by council, the approval was for, there was approval for administration to transfer funds within certain categories. So the transfers that you see in this exhibit, this Resolution 26, 2025, are from one of those categories to another. So the two categories in the water fund are from the transmission and distribution and work at the two plants, the Conestoga and Susquehanna plants. And in addition to these transfers, we're actually requesting two new projects to be added for the Conestoga plant. Both of those are related to membranes at the Conestoga, which are the treatment technology there. And I think I will stop there.
I'll open it up for questions from the committee. From full council. Councilor Calise.
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo. Thank you, Director Campbell, for the presentation. And are there any projects being delayed or canceled or reduced as a result of this amendment?
No, they're not being delayed. I am not aware of any being reduced. Director Campbell's shaking his head no. So no, I don't think any of them are being reduced either.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions or comments from council?
I'll just mention one thing, if I may, Councilor Arroyo, is that when you look at the Phase 3 large T&D Susquehanna River to water treatment plant, that is the design phase that's been completed. We're now in Phase 3, and that's where the Penvest financing that we were talking about related to this most recent bond, that's the project that some of these bond funds are going to go to. So, and we need additional to complete that. And I'll also just say that, the expense of buying steel pipe is changing, and that may impact how much replacement we're going to be able to do. But that 42-inch main replacement is significant and a major focus for this year.
And we'll be talking a bit more about it in the Public Works Committee as well.
Yes.
Great, thank you, Mayor Sorachi. Any questions from the public? And this would be in regards to either Resolution 25 or 26.
Darlene Bird, Ann Street. Once again, I'm going to ask council why they do not put this information up on the screen that you're showing. We spend a lot of money updating city council chambers with technology, and yet you're talking about things that we're not able to see. It's not available on the website at this time, and it needs to be put out to the public. One of the reasons when I was on the home rule and suggested even about the reports was that so the public would have more information, not just the council members. So again, I'm asking council, hoping to get an answer, why this is not presented to the public so we can see what she's referring to or what anyone's referring to when they're presenting something. Thank you.
Tony Dastra, 700 block New Holland Avenue. I want to echo what Darlene's saying. Municipal government is where we as the people are supposed to understand how government functions on all levels. This is the smallest level, so this is the school. And years ago, I was encouraged that, if I want to see the work actually get done, I need to go to the committee meetings. And that's why I started live broadcasting the committee meetings as well as city council. So I do feel that Darlene's right on the money. Like these materials should be prepped and prepared and presented on the screen. Because even when you're viewing from home, which I've done recently a few times, all you see is the agenda. It's not really an educational experience for the residents. It's just noise on a screen. So it really is imperative to the public that these get prepared and presented. Thank you.
Just a clarification, these, and I agree, I think we could present these as well. I think these are presented on the website prior to council meetings and prepared for public availability.
Hi, Brian Nelson, Columbia Avenue. I just had one question. You mentioned the vacancies that you were using to, we were saving money off of the vacancies. Are there any plans to fill those vacancies, or are you just going to leave, not hire for these positions? What's the plan going forward with the vacancies that you guys mentioned?
Is this in regards to the budget update?
Was that for the budget? I apologize. I think I misinterpreted that. But yeah, so I guess, going forward, I guess for we're talking about the budget and stuff like that, are we budgeting in for 2025 to fill these vacancies, or is that not going to be budgeted in?
Yeah, happy to let Director Campbell answer that question regarding in general personnel.
So many of the vacancies that happened in 2024 were included in the budget for 2025, but many of them weren't full vacancies. It was people that had left positions, so there might have been a gap in filling that position before another person came in.
Thank you, Director Campbell. With that, I will motion to move.
something to say.
Susie Gomez, 100 block of North Reservoir Street. I just wanted to implement for the public, not so much for you guys. What Janet had mentioned, $10 million of the Josh Shapiro Fund that was granted to municipalities should have been used. As Tina Campbell mentioned, she's relying on the income tax increase from the taxpayers that was granted for the homeroom charter. So when you're looking at a budget, I think that all of these factors should come into play, especially when you're trying to balance a budget and you have deficits. It's important to utilize the grants that is given to especially crisis areas or for municipalities that deal with issues in the community that the government is releasing funding for. Who writes these grants, Tina? Why is it not important for you to, push a little bit further into looking into these grants? Because $10 million is a lot of money that could have been used for these areas. And for it to be ignored is beyond my understanding.
Any further public comment? All right, as it pertains to resolution number 25, I will motion to move resolution number 25 to the next full council meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'll move on to resolution number 26, and I'll motion to move resolution number 26 to the next full council meeting.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor? Aye. So moved. Council President, that concludes the Finance Committee meeting.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move to our Public Safety Committee meeting. Councilor Diaz.
I just wanted to first inform everyone that, just like President Baker said, there will be no comments during the time that Chief Mendez is doing his presentation. There has been some drastic changes, and I picked that up when Councilor Arroyo ran the budget meeting where there was no comments from the public, which was very odd because for years there was. And at that time, there were written comments that were submitted, although I think someone needs to look to see why it has not been updated. But I would like, if Chief Mendez could please come and speak to the public. Thank you very much.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. So first, I'd like to start off with a little bit of the training that your police department does. As I've stressed numerous times over the years, Lancaster City has one of the best trained police departments around, and we dedicate a lot of our time to training. Some of those, and I guess you guys are getting a packet, which I'm going to summarize off of and read as well. Some of those trainings include control tactics, which are defensive tactics, arrest procedures, and subject control.
Can we ask him to bring the mic closer?
All right. De-escalation techniques. Those are techniques to resolve conflicts peacefully. We train in mental health awareness, understanding and assisting individuals in crisis, and bias training, addressing implicit and explicit bias in policing. Some of the specialized training areas our officers go through are advanced patrol officer certifications. Those cover safety priorities, decision-making, and patrol tactics. We require yearly use of force trainings. These trainings include, again, decision-making, control tactics, de-escalation principles, and post-incident care. And one of the trainings we really focus on is reality-based scenarios. These are done to enhance decision-making, verbal skills, and de-escalation techniques as well. That's a lot of our internal training that we go through. The Bureau also does a lot of external training programs, some of which include crisis intervention team certification, the art of reading people, trauma-informed training, which we partnered with our social workers on, and the entire police department went through that training, and we continue to train that as well. Along with those trainings, we're mandated through MOPEC, which is the certifying police agency for the Commonwealth. We do yearly updates that are required, again, by MOPEC. Some of those, again, mental health first aid, use of force and de-escalation, tactical communication, understanding stereotypes, bias, critical decision-making models. The overall key principles are ethics, values, proportionality, and the sanctity of human life. And again, these are all mandated through the state. Your police department has a commitment to training. We mandate 16 hours of training a year that they have to go through. That's mandated. Again, they take an additional training as well. And one thing we're really proud of with your officers is to show how dedicated they are. Since January of 2024, they have conducted over 150 hours of training on their own time. They come in, they volunteer to come in, they work with training instructors before shift, middle of the day on weekends. This is uncompensated time that they spend to make themselves better at doing their job. And we're really proud of that for the amount of work the officers put in. Again, like I stated, we do a lot of external trainings. CIT is probably one of the biggest ones. And just be sure that your police department is committed to getting better. As I've said numerous times, no one's perfect, but I will say this, you have one of the best police departments around, and we're committed to training and getting better. All right, now I'll move on to, I think, what everyone's here for, our use of force report and reporting procedures. The police department, Lancaster City police officers may only use force when it is objectively reasonable, proportional, and necessary given the totality of the circumstances. These circumstances include, but are not limited to, force necessary to effect an arrest, control an individual, lawfully detain a subject, prevent escape, or to protect themselves or others. We have a use of force policy that's been on our website since 2022. I would recommend everybody read it thoroughly. There's a lot of information in there. There's definitions. There's a lot on our website, and again, it's been there since 2022. Officers will follow a use of force continuum, which is a guideline. It will show subjects' resistance as well as officers' reactions and what they can do to overcome that resistance. So I'd like to point out that the degree of force used depends on what the officer perceives as reasonable and necessary under the circumstances. The Bureau expects an officer to employ only the force necessary to accomplish a lawful arrest. I wanted to break down some levels of resistance for everyone. Again, as the continuum we use is like a book. It'll have levels of resistance and our levels that will use force. Officers can enter at any level. It depends on what the subject is presenting them. But we do like to start and, if possible, work our way up as we go through that. Levels of resistance, which is in our use of force policy, but I want to touch on a couple things. Psychological intimidation is the first level. That can be circling an officer, surrounding them. It can be inciting a crowd to come around them. It can be the 1,000-yard stare where they're staring through you. We train our officers on, keys to recognize. It could be clenched fist, body blading. Those are all psychological intimidation. Next would be verbal non-compliance. This would be the subject's direct refusal. They could be arguing, stalling, basically they're not cooperating verbally. Next level would be passive resistance. The subject is either sitting or lying down. It can be they're refusing to let go of something. Scenario with that would be a steering wheel in a vehicle. Sometimes subjects that don't want to get arrested will hold on to a steering wheel. So that would be that level. After that, the next would be defensive resistance. That can include fleeing. They're fleeing the officers. It can be pulling away, refusing to be handcuffed. And then next would be active aggression. That would be delivering strikes, hitting an officer, kicking an officer, actively assaulting an officer. And then lastly on that would be deadly force. That would be where the officer believes his or her life or the life of a citizen is in jeopardy with the life of and typically those would be a knife, a gun. It can be, many things that would cause serious bodily injury or death. Levels of control. So again, as I said, it's we use like a book format, so I went over that. All use of force starts out with officer presence at a scene. That's considered a use of force most times, and as we get into stats a little bit later, the mere presence of an officer in uniform will get the results they want. You don't have to go past that level. The next level an officer can use would be verbal direction. Those are commands. You're under arrest, don't move, put your hands behind your back, verbal commands. After that would be soft, empty hand control. These are control techniques. They can be joint locks, any movement, any way you want to control movement, and we also have OC spray in that level of control. From there, it would be hard, empty hand control. Those are strikes to a person. They're hard, empty hand control because they have a higher probability of injury to the officer or the subject being arrested. Moving on from there would be the intermediate weapons level. That would be impact weapons. A baton or taser falls under that level of control as well. From there, lastly would be deadly force. And again, that would be the officer fears for his or her life or the life of a community member or citizen that they have to protect and take immediate action. So I want to just, touch on, everything that, is in our use of force policy and our guidelines under Title 18, Chapter 5, General Principles of Justification. Everything we do is based on whether it's crimes code, case law, best practices in policing. Touch a little bit on de-escalation. So when safe and feasible to do, and given the totality of circumstances, officers shall attempt to take action to prevent or decrease the need to use force during an incident. Such techniques we use are persuasion, advice, providing warnings prior to using force. That can be as simple as you're under arrest, trying to talk to them rather than have to use any type of force. Establish a rapport when possible, engage in communication, evaluating whether you can use time, distance, or positioning, and when appropriate, request additional resources. One key thing with de-escalation is it requires time and distance, and also not everybody can be de-escalated. There's things that factor into whether you can de-escalate somebody or not. Also, I'd like to point out, we do have a duty to intervene policy, so if an officer sees excessive force, force that would fall outside of our policies and procedures and standards, they are required under our policy to intervene when they see that.
That should have been fired when that guy got punched in the face and did not intervene.
Folks, we're going to let the chief continue his report. Thank you.
All right, next I'd like to move into reporting a little bit, and again, that policy is on our website to show reporting requirements. We have a separate policy for documenting use of force incidents. So officers shall complete a police bureau use of force report prior to the end of their shift. So if they meet one of these marks, we require them to report that finish that document before their shift ends. So before they go home for the evening or day, they have to get that paperwork done. Some of the list of when they would need to do a use of force, I'm going to go through because I think it's really important. Anytime a person has been physically struck by an officer, anytime a chemical agent is used against a person, so anytime OC spray is used, we do a use of force report. Anytime a conductive electronic weapon is used, so that would be the taser. If that's used, they have to do a report. Any impact weapon is used. If a firearm is pointed in the direction of a person, so when you look at some of our stats, which we'll get into, the deadly force stats, it may look like they're higher. We require anytime a handgun is used, if they're clearing a building, somebody pops whatever reason and it's pointed in their direction, we require them to do reporting on that as well. Anytime a canine bites a person, so if a canine is engaged with someone and bites them, we require a report. Any injuries that are visible to the officer or complaint of injuries. Anytime someone complains about the force, so if it's an arrest that doesn't necessarily meet the standard, but somebody complains when they're being arrested that force was too much, we'll require a use of force. If anyone requests medical treatment for an injury they say happened, even if it appears to be an older injury and they're saying, no, it happened now, we'll require officers to do reports. We have a couple caveats in there that any supervisor can mandate an officer do one. So if a supervisor is at a call or for whatever reason they can mandate an officer does that. And also if an officer just feels like they should do one. So if they're like, well, I didn't really meet the level of any of our standards, but I think I should do one, then they can do that as well. Touch a little bit on the review procedures for those. So I know I mentioned this before, but I'd like to point out again that when we review use of force reports, It's a 1989 case law. I'd really recommend if anyone's interested in use of force and policing that you spend some time and review the case law of Graham v. Connor. And what came out of that case was the objective reasonable standard. And I think the simplest way to put it is we have to view it through the lens of the officer at that time with the same training, same, if the same exact location, what they're witnessing at that time. We can't come back and Monday morning quarterback and say, well, you should have thought of this. Like, we have to put ourselves in that officer's shoes at that time, what a reasonably trained officer would do when met with the same circumstances. That's the guidance of it. And again, that's a 1989 Supreme Court ruling that has withstood the test of time since then. So our review procedure, like I said, the officer does it at the beginning of his shift, his or her shift, or at the end of his or her shift. It then goes to the officer in charge. So that is typically a lieutenant who oversees that platoon of officers. That lieutenant is required to read all reports, make sure they're done accurately, review all body camera footage and car camera footage. And then if any, corrections be made or if there's any issues, they can address it there. After the officer in charge reviews it, it gets sent to our training cadre, is a group of officers that are trained, that conduct our training and review all of our use of force reports. They're the officers that are certified to conduct the training that we train throughout the year. From there, the training sergeant will, the training sergeant will assign it to a group, and a training cadre member will review it. They will, again, read all reports, view all video, make sure it falls within our training and our policies and procedures. And again, just to point out, at any level of this, somebody reviewing it can raise an alarm and say, hey, I don't think this is right, or I think there's an issue with the training. After it goes through the training cadre, it then gets assigned to the appropriate division captain. So typically, if it's a use of force done by a patrol officer, the patrol captain gets that report. Same if a detective uses force, a detective captain will get that. That captain, again, reviews all reports, body camera footage, gets the input of the training cadre, whether it meets the standards or not, if there were any issues, what they were, what the training cadre recommends. And then after the captain approves it, it gets forward to the chief of police for another final review. Again, review all reports, all video, see if there's any issues, look at any remarks made by training cadre. And at any point along this process, our internal affairs can step in and look at it as well. If they don't, for whatever reason, once I'm done with it, I send it to them for the last final review and then enter it into our system as final. So that's the process for review. Just wanted to touch a little bit on, if there are issues that come up, obviously we can, if there's an issue, we can discipline, but some of the levels we'll do with discipline would be, it could be a training issue that we need to retrain. We could have to do coaching. I think the easiest way to describe coaching is if the officer's force was correct, they had every reason to use it, but there were other options that we would like them to look at. We can do a coaching for them. Internal review, investigation policies, again, if there's any violations of that, we can move on to disciplinary action as well. Annually, each supervisor shall ensure that their personnel review applicable law and provisions of this policy. The review shall be documented and retained within the Police Bureau records. If you're carrying any weapon, you have to be certified in it and trained yearly, and we maintain those records as well. All right, and I think if we can move on to some stats now.
when they actually result in their job? That's the question. No, he didn't say a word about what the training looks like about it, I was just listening to him. It's like, supposed to be something. They're not.
All right, so the first stats we have are calls for service resulting in arrest. And as you can see, the larger block, the color is not the best on this screen, but the bottom larger block is the calls for service with no arrest. Moving on from there, it's arrest not requiring force. So you make an arrest and it doesn't rise to a level of requiring a use of force report. And from there is the arrest requiring force. That's the line on top of those. And I'll just do quarter four, for example. Out of 8,698 calls for service, 477 arrests, 29 of those required a use of force report for one reason or another. So those are those data as you can see. Next is all incidents of force, non-physical incidents of force versus physical incidents of force. Again, a non-physical incident of force would be something that did not require the use of force reporting. And as we talked about in our use of force continuum, even officer presence is a use of force, verbal command. So if those would be the arrest under that data, then followed by the physical incidents of force. Next one. All right, all incidents of force by type breaks it down a little simpler as we talked about. As you can see, officer presence, verbal direction, all the way up to deadly force. And again, I just want to make sure everyone's clear on the deadly force. It's not that deadly force per se was used. It's that if you pointed a gun in the direction of somebody, we require that to be a report. So that would generate that number as well. All right, moving on to some progress from the Bureau. Again, in 2018, body cameras and revised our use of force policy. Our social worker program has been a tremendous asset for the police and the community. As I stated in the training, all our officers have gone through trauma-informed training. Our recruitment and hiring efforts as well. And something we're real proud of is our PLEAC accreditation process. It's been about 2 years, I think. It felt like 20 at times. But again, that was going through a rigorous process, a review of all our policies, procedures, how we operate, our equipment. I think it's 139 points that we pulled proofs for. And while we're almost there, April 24th, we go for the official meeting to hopefully be an accredited agency. It just doesn't stop at April 24th. We're continuing to work. This is a never-ending process with accreditation and pulling proofs, changing policies, making sure they fit the most recent best practices for policies and standards. Less than 1% of calls for service result in use of force. Again, our police social worker program has served hundreds of residents. We're really proud of the Community Engagement Office with Sergeant Todd Greger and all the work he's done for the community engagement. He's really taken it to a whole other level. We partner with Blueprints. We do ride-alongs with them. Target those in need for addiction recovery. We have a partnership with Benchmark for our youth intervention and increased youth crime prevention efforts through engagement and our SROs as well. We get a lot of compliments on our school resource officers, and we're extremely proud of the work they do. A lot of it goes unnoticed. You might not see it or hear about it, but the relationships they're building with students in the school district has been tremendous, and we're extremely proud of that as well. Okay, some youth gun seizures since 2018. As you can see, it's been increasingly alarming. I know we've talked about it at least since 21 when I was patrol captain. We're seeing an increase in our youth carrying firearms, and you can see the stats there. I think, what stands out a lot is, from 24 and younger, the amount of guns that we're seeing. Year-to-date youth gun seizures, as you can see, there is 17 currently, and those are the age groups for the year so far, so we're on pace again, and it's a number that, we would like to see be zero. And lastly, with the stats, again, youth gun seizures for 18 and under, you can see the age groups with that as well. And again, it's alarming, and it's something that, we really need to fix as a community, but we need everybody to help with that. Okay, and that is by year, going back to 2018. My stats person just wanted me to make sure you... Yeah. Okay, and that's all I have, and if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Chief Mendez is allowing one question per city council.
He's got permission to ask one question, y'all.
So does anybody have a question for Chief Mendez?
Thank you, Councilor Diaz. And I have several questions that I'll ask. First, with the most recent incident that most people are here for with the March 2nd, given that this involved minors, is there a separate use of force policy, and is there a separate reporting standards when it involves minors?
So our use of force policy is the same, and our reporting is the same for any individual with, as far as our reporting for use of force.
Okay, and then when there is use of force and the reports, the findings, how do residents currently access them? And are there ways that we can make it more accessible for residents?
So I believe they're currently quarterly. We're putting out our stats quarterly on our website with the use of force data. So that's been on, and I think it's, do we go back a few years with that one that's currently on? So it's on our website and quarterly.
Only quarter four is.
Well, and given that these are quarterly, can we have request reports quarterly to council similar to the finance quarterly reports to kind of go over the use of force within the quarter and the findings? Would that be something that council could request by report?
Yes.
As far as the stats, or I'm not sure what you're... I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you with the background noise.
What incidents happened within this quarter? What were the findings? And just a report to council, similar to what given tonight.
Yeah, I don't see an issue with that, is why we couldn't do that, yes.
Thank you. My last question is, given that, you stated that the review is viewed in the lens of an officer that is fully trained, is there any consideration in if this officer had previous incidents or his past or anything of that?
So that's two different questions. We view each incident on its own standing and merit. So that's the first part of the answer, I guess I would say. Now, if an officer violates a use of force policy, or any policy for that matter, then we use other violations to increase discipline, and our discipline is covered under the collective bargaining agreement, which we're bound by as well. So, again, each incident we have to view for the incident. I'll also add, because that's a very good question, the way we track our stats and the system we use, we have early intervention alerts. So we set it, if there's the mark is set and an officer reaches that for numerous different things, not just use of force. If they get to that level, all supervisors, internal affairs get an alert, and it'll say like, hey, Officer so-and-so had 6 use of force reports in this time frame. It needs a second look. And then we require supervisors and IA to look into that and see if there's a pattern of something there. And it's not just use of force. We do that for vehicle pursuits, complaints. There's thresholds, and if they meet that, then we review it. We also do random body cam reviews. So we have supervisors randomly pulling up body camera footage to review the officers as well. And again, those are accreditation standards that we have to meet continually as well.
Thank you. That concludes my questions, Councilor.
Is there anyone else? Councilor Curry?
Thank you, Councilor Diaz. Thank you, Chief Mendes, for the presentation. What immediate steps is the department willing to take in order to increase transparency and rebuild the public trust?
What steps are we willing to take?
Yes, to increase transparency and rebuild public trust.
Well, I think public trust is a two-way street. Like, we have to work as well. If you have to come to the table and we have to talk. So
For everyone in the room tonight, we're going to conduct this meeting so that we can hear everyone. Chief Mendez, please continue.
Yeah. We will meet people where they're at. As I said about our community engagement office, that was created in, I forget the year, but it's the past few years. The work they've done has been tremendous. The accreditation process was an outside agency or an outside entity reviewed from all across the state. We don't know these people. They come in, they reviewed, they looked at everything. We put our stats online. We're willing to do everything, but again, we would welcome people's involvement as well. We have the Citizen Police Academy we're going to launch again. I would love to see that packed. We tried to do it last year, and we didn't have enough people interested. So come to Citizen Police Academy. We will tell you how we do things. We will put you through scenarios. I would open that up to every council member as well. Any future city leader, any community member, come. Our doors are open. We will have it. I think we're shooting for a June timeframe. I hope it's so packed that we have to run 3 this year or more.
Another question, are there any limitations to create a review board, a civilian review board? If there are, what are they, how they can be addressed?
So there are limitations, and I believe the mayor's going to talk about that in a report she has.
Okay.
Yep.
And how is the relationship now between the police department and the community?
I think it's great, but we're a city of 60,000 people. I think it's great. Can there be improvement? There can always be improvement. I've never said the police are perfect. We're perfect. But the strides we came from 2018, I'd really even say from like 2021 or 2022 to now has been tremendous. Everybody up here should be proud of their police department. The community should be proud of their police department. They work tirelessly. We're the shortest we've ever been, but our clearance rate on crimes is amazing. The engagement from our community engagement office, the hours that they put in, the SROs, the events that go unnoticed where they're volunteering their time to go spend time with our youth. I'll go to the engagement office again on his own time, going in, playing basketball with youth. Like, our officers are doing a tremendous job.
Thank you. No further questions. Thank you, Councilor Diaz.
Councilor Diaz, if I may.
She was going to speak first.
I have one question. I want to just clarify on the latest update of statistics for use of force in the most recent quarter that's available, just to put it in perspective. So that was the slide, and it's available on the police website. 8,698 arrests. And the use of force on the continuum that's reportable is 29. So if my math's correct, that's 0.003% of arrests. I just wanted to make sure that number is correct.
So the 8,698 are calls for service with no arrest.
Got it.
Yes, then the next level up would be the arrest not requiring force, followed by the arrest reporting
Great.
force.
Thank you. I wanted to get clarification on that. That's still 0.06% of the arrests, so, thank you. That's all.
Councilor Rubio?
Thank you, Councilor Diaz. Thank you, Chief Mendes, for the report. Appreciate it. Couple questions. Regarding to, one of the things you mentioned was after an incident happens, you mentioned the case law that occurred. Well, what type of coaching happens after, or does any coaching happen after when there's an incident of what improvements could have been made with the officer? I know you said, there's no Monday morning quarterbacking, but are there ways of coaching officers on alternative approaches, et cetera, during an incident?
So, yeah, and when I was talking about some of the post review things that we can do, coaching, and again, coaching is typically used where they didn't violate a policy, but we're saying, hey, do better, you can do this is a better option. I can think of one, coaching recently where we like, when practical, we tell you to make sure they know you're under arrest. Tell them they're under arrest. We had an officer not do that, arrested the person. We see that they didn't do anything wrong. The person was to be arrested, but we coached them and said, hey, like, you had the opportunity to tell them they were under arrest. That needs to happen. Now, if that pattern were to continue with an officer, and luckily it has not with that officer, then it would move on to another level of discipline.
Thank you. And regarding the body cam, so I believe in 2018 is when we first started having body cams, or having every officer wear body cams. Can you tell us a little bit more about the policy and the practice for our police officers and body cams, as far as when they're turned on and when the footage is reviewed?
Yeah, so we have a specific policy just geared around body cameras, so I didn't bring that with me to really get into it, but it's on all the time. We have a feature activated on it where I think it's like up to 18 hours if they don't have it on now, that we can pull back and do it. So those are some changes we made recently with it. The technologies has grown, which now allows us to do stuff like that, but it should be on when they're interacting with the public. That being said, again, we're human, so sometimes officers will be in the heat and forget to turn it on. That would be a policy violation that gets addressed through that means of the policy.
And last question that I have is regarding, and sorry if I missed it, but regarding the police social workers, when are they typically engaged during interaction, and what do those situations typically look like?
So they are not co-responders. They don't respond to the call. They do a lot of, work beforehand. So they review the calls. They see the patterns of places we're going to. They have a little bit more access to some of the history with some of the members in our community. So they will do outreach that way. But they will also, if an officer requests them, officer gets to a scene, makes it safe, where they can enter, and if it's a need for a social worker, then they will respond to that. But they're not out there just responding before a scene's safe.
That concludes my questions, Councilor Diaz. Thank you, Chief Mendes.
Is there any other council members? I'm going to go ahead and have Mayor Sirachi speak right now.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to some of the questions that came up. Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you.
That have been raised. So I'll just start by saying that, during my time as mayor, I did not always have full trust or confidence in the police bureau, and nor did they in me. That has changed. At least I know that I have confidence in our police bureau, and I believe that we have made a lot of strides. I'm proud of their work and the work underway, and that progress has been a journey for sure. And I recognize that some will support these efforts and some may not. When I speak to residents across the city, I do hear a clear message. They want a fully staffed police bureau. You are well aware that we are down quite a number of officers. They want our officers present in their neighborhoods, and they want safe streets. I want to clarify a point of discussion. This has come up from several of you related to a civilian review board. So just to be perfectly clear, the city of Lancaster has never had a civilian review board. Instead, during my time as mayor, from 2018 to 2024, we have had a community and police working group. This has not been a formal board, commission, or authority. This group has played a valuable role in strengthening those community relationships, informing policy changes early on, identifying leadership qualities for a new police chief, and improving recruitment strategies. They also have participated in events like National Night Out, Neighborhood Month, block parties. You may have seen them wearing T-shirts. And over time, the Police Bureau has institutionalized community engagement practices through the Office of Community Engagement. And I think you heard Chief mention that. So last year, the working group merged with the Call to Action Committee that's led by the School District of Lancaster. That group meets monthly with school staff, youth-serving organizations, city representatives from multiple departments, and others. And an area of focus, one area of focus is on youth gun violence prevention, and that I reported on to council in February related to the PCCD grant that they received through the city. I have not supported establishing a civilian review board because they lack authority. Existing review boards in Pennsylvania are purely advisory. Police disciplinary processes are governed by collective bargaining agreements, just as they are with every other union contract in the city and across the state. Other concerns include legal liability and the fact that evidence in criminal cases falls under the jurisdiction of the district attorney's office, and that limits what can be shared externally. If the goal is to build trust between the community and police, I do not believe a civilian review board is effective. Without authority, they create mismatched expectations between the community, board members, and the police bureau. However, I do see value in external validation of police policies and practices. And this is why you've been hearing so much about the accreditation process. It has been a priority for me and Chief Mendez. This was something that I have been wanting to do since 2018, and under Chief Mendez's leadership, we are getting there. And you will continue to hear more about this in the next month. Regarding body camera footage, the city strictly adheres to state laws governing its release, including Act 22, the Juvenile Act, and the Criminal History Record Information Act. These laws ensure the integrity of criminal proceedings and the protection of minors. So I understand community concerns about police interactions with young people. It is difficult to see youth fighting in public parks and then be pepper sprayed. However, every individual got home safely, and that's something that we should not take for granted. Personally, as a mom, I will never forget attending the funeral of a 16-year-old who was stabbed in June 2019 in a street fight. The anguish in that church sanctuary stays with me. The March 2nd arrests were also difficult to witness. However, the individuals that were involved broke the law, were repeatedly warned, they fled from police, and they were subsequently arrested. Last Saturday, I received a video from a personal resident, just a city resident, of the same group on their bikes, including one of their recently arrested teens, riding recklessly on Orange Street near the exit of the Prince Street Garage, blocking traffic and surrounding cars. Addressing unsafe behavior among young bike riders is not about blame, it's about recognizing a real issue. Many residents have encountered this group firsthand and expressed their concern and their frustration. If we all want our kids to get home safely and to limit police interactions with young people whenever possible, then we need other solutions. As such, we remain committed to working with the school district, the Boys and Girls Club, Benchmark, the Mix, and others to foster those positive relationships with young people. And I encourage everyone to invest similarly. I'll close with this. Your police bureau and your city remain committed to public safety in every neighborhood and on every block. Public safety is a partnership between the police bureau and the community. Your bureau, your police chief, who grew up in this city, South Queen Street, and myself are dedicated to that partnership and will continue to strengthen it with city residents who are committed to the same. Thank you for the opportunity to add my comments to the chief's report, and that is all I have to say right now.
Thank you, Mayor Sirachi. I also want to extend a thank you for Chief Mendez to take that opportunity to come and give us the information and stats of what is going on in our community in reference to crime, as well as, unfortunately, children that are carrying weapons that can cause damage not only to themselves but others. And that right now concludes everything for Safety Committee. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Councilor Diaz. We will move now to our Public Works Committee. Councilor Hirsch.
Thank you, Council President. The Public Works Committee has 5 items on the agenda tonight. They're all, for the most part, administrative in nature. Council President, I may give a minute for some folks too.
Sure. As Directors Campbell approached the
Yeah, I was going to say also.
favorite plural way to say it.
While that's happening, could I just follow up with Councilor Diaz about the funding that you mentioned, Councilor? Yeah,
Oh,
I
going
did
back
find
to
it. This is a proposal from the Shapiro administration to add $10 million to the budget that is currently being considered. It would add money to the special state fund that aids local governments facing severe economic hardships in its proposed budget for the 2025-26 fiscal year. This would help support communities under the Municipal Financial Recovery Act, also known as Act 47, which gives municipalities that declare financial distress access to these resources. So I'm reading from a news article from March 24th, so it sounds like this is in a budget proposal from the Shapiro administration, and obviously we'll pay attention to that moving forward. And I'll just say, like, it's very frustrating that that money would only be eligible for cities who are entering Act 47.
Which we are not very much on purpose.
Correct.
Yes, I agree, and I was looking at the same. Thank you. Councilor Hirsch.
Yes, back to Public Works. No, that was a good information to add in there. And it's all kind of related, I think, or at least it was coming from the conversation we were having earlier, which is about upgrades to our water infrastructure. So in relation to Resolution 27, I see Director Stephen Campbell at the stand.
Thank you very, very much. I will introduce the pieces that we want to talk about in the following way. The city has talked about about the Penvest loans recently. As a reminder, Penvest is the Pennsylvania State Revolving Loan Fund. They provide funding for certain water, sewer, and stormwater projects. While they offer a few grant options, most of their funding is in the form of very low interest loans. We pursue this funding in place of bond funding as the projects qualify to take advantage of the lower loan rates. On March 3rd, Tina Campbell mentioned that we will be going after Penvest financing for some sewer and water projects that are eligible for Penvest. Penvest requires resolutions for us to submit an application. So these resolutions tonight are for the submission of the application. They are not to accept loan funding. These applications will be submitted in one of the Penvest application cycles in 2025. There are 3 resolutions regarding Penvest this evening, but they relate to only 2 Penvest applications. The first resolution this evening, 27-2025, is for the continued work on lead line replacement. We are actually pursuing some grant funding on this application, and we have to write the application as a loan application, but there is grant funding available for this work. So we are pursuing that with this application. The application for 27-2025 is in the amount of $1.709338 million, which represents approximately 108 lead water service lines for Lancaster City. These are the lines that we've already identified and/or with a little bit of reconfirmation need to be reconfirmed. We do what we call potholing to make sure that they require replacement. That 1.7 represents approximately $6,000 to $20,000 per line, depending on the circumstance. And by going after this low-interest funding, we would prohibit or we would make sure that the property owner is not on the hook for having to pay for that lead line replacement. We are in the process right now of having identified approximately 25 to 27% of the lead lines in the city of Lancaster, or of the lines in the city of Lancaster, and we're about to have what we call machine learning, an upload of machine learning information within the next couple of months that hopefully would increase that percentage to about 75% of the 60 to 75% of the lines to be known or not known. But over the course of the next 2 to 3 years, we are still going to be continuing to confirm the inventory of service lines that need to be replaced because they're lead or other. So this particular request is to seek the ability to make the application for the 1.7 million in low interest loans from Penvest.
Thank you, Director Campbell. And I'll just add that, part of the confirmation process, Pennsylvania is one of 4 states that is requiring, or the DEP in this case is requiring 2 forms of confirmation, correct? So that's part of what adds to the additional need for...
The cost and the consternation of having to do this work, yes.
Yeah. Are there any Public Works Committee comments on Resolution 27? Or comments or questions from full council? Council President Baker.
Thank you. Dr. Campbell, I missed it. I was trying to take some notes. You mentioned that this would cover how many, approximately how many?
About 108 service lines.
Thank you very much.
That means the reconfirmation, the excavation, the removal, and the replacement of those lines. And because we are pretty certain of which these lines are, we know that some of them require a lot of excavation, there's a lot of stonework, and then the replacement of the sidewalks, et cetera, so that you don't have an unfinished situation when it's completed.
And just to put a finer point on it, the funds would cover the total cost of that, where in other circumstances, in other cases outside of this project, property owners would be responsible for the total cost of the project.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Councilor Ahmed.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Herschel. Thank you, Director Campbell. What is the budgetary impact on this additional debt service?
The budgetary impact on the lead service line replacement?
Yeah, on this loan or this Penvest loan.
This is perhaps the lowest way, the lowest priced or lowest cost way that we can get this work done. It is a low interest loan. It does need to be repaid, but it is, by being a low interest loan over time, it minimizes or reduces the impact as much as practical. Is that to say that it eliminates it? No. There's still a lot of work that still has to be done to confirm over the course of the next several years the number of lines that do require replacement, and it is basically an unfunded mandate that we need to find, we as a municipality, as every municipality in this country of the United States has to find the ways of replacing the lead service lines. And as of the date, a date in early or mid 2023, the cost of that is, the cost of lines that fall under this mandate will not be borne by the particular property owner.
Thank you. And on the contrary, does that mean, should we be getting more? Should we be going after more dollars through this fund?
It's a very good question, and we've tried several different ways of doing this. There are two challenges. One challenge is that every time you make this application, or in the earlier programs, there's an administration fee that attaches to making that application. And so the higher number of applications we make, we still have that same administration fee applied for every application. So we're trying to group them as much as possible with ones we already know and hold off until the next batch is knowable. And that's why it is unlikely that we're going to go after more funding like the lead service line funding until the machine learning information is uploaded, because then we'll have another critical mass of numbers. Our hope is that at that point, we will not be limited by location in the sense that the earlier applications were based on what they called neighborhoods, areas that were in close proximity to each other. We're hoping that we can just have a collection of lines that need to be replaced, irrespective of the neighborhood that they're in, which gives us a lot more flexibility. It allows it to be a less costly endeavor, so we'd be borrowing less money to be able to perform more of the work. Oh, sure.
I just wanted to add that a piece of this, as Director Campbell mentioned, is that we are actually looking for grant funding for this. So this is one of the few programs that PennVest will offer grant funding with. And one of the things that PennVest has recommended is that we look at specific neighborhoods because it helps us to increase our opportunities for grant funding. And so some of the reason that this is the 1.7 million and not more is because we're looking at some of these concentrated areas that he was talking about as well.
Thank you, and I appreciate your guys' attention to this, and I look forward for more reporting to council on how this goes. And that concludes my question.
Thank you, Councilor Ahmed. Any other questions from full council? Council, please.
Thank you, Councilor Hirsch. Thank you, Director Campbell, for the presentation. And then what is the expected timeline for receiving funding and completing this replacement? I don't know if I missed it.
No, you didn't miss it, and it's a couple of questions. One, by applying for this funding, we're hoping that the funds would be available by early 2026. The requirements of the program are, at this moment, that all lines must be identified and removed within approximately 10 years. That has not yet changed. But we understand that there may be some changes in policy under the current administration.
Yeah, that has not changed, but that is a request that mayors are bringing to the new administration regarding that time frame of 10 years.
And I do want to emphasize that the city of Lancaster has had this is a spam call that people are just trying to get at me for, the city of Lancaster has had a program for lead service line replacement for almost 15 years. And we've been replacing a small number of lead lines each year during that period. But with the mandate, we have to accelerate that program, and with that mandate, which is unfunded, we must find the ways of doing it as a city, not as had been done previously.
And I just want to underscore that we continue to treat our water to prevent lead leaching, which is in contrast to other communities that have had lead in their water and have not followed the proper protocols to reduce and eliminate lead leaching. So I always just want to underscore that. So this is a problem, and as you all heard me say before, we have more exposure to children becoming poisoned by lead through paint than we do because of a water source.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Calise. Any other questions or comments from members of council? From the public, any comment or question?
Okay. Darlene Bird, maybe council kind of understands everything that's going on, but as I come to these meetings and I hear about these resolutions, it makes me want to ask more questions. At the last council meeting, we approved to go for Penvest, I think for $9 million. Is that correct?
Is that the extent of your comment?
No.
Okay, so,
Yeah, it was 9.1, thank you.
okay.
Also, we just talked about two resolutions, number 25 and number 26, which totals like $5.6 million that would be going into the water, and I'm assuming some of these lead lines as well. We are now applying for $1.1 million, and I heard Mr. Campbell say it's a grant or a loan. I don't think that was clear. I mean, I would like to know if it is a grant or a loan, what is the interest rate? How low is it? I also understand that they're going to be targeting neighborhoods. And I know back when they first got the lead, got money to do the lead lines, they targeted the Southwest. And I remember coming to council and questioning why you're working on lead paint in the Southeast. Why do you not focus in that area to get rid of all the lead? So out of these 108 homes that would get done and they're targeting a neighborhood, do we know where that may be? They're my questions.
I can answer a couple of those questions if you want me to. And I'm going to invite, so first part, we don't know if we're going to get a grant or a loan yet, Ms. Bird. We have to apply.
Okay.
And there's a certain amount of money that Penvest has through the state revolving loan program, and they evaluate based on the criteria and need. And so that goes to both the economic conditions in a particular neighborhood as well as our ability to identify that that is where lead lines are. There are fewer known lead lines in the southeast than there are in the southwest. That's why we're starting there. Additionally, the total project over 10 years for lead line replacement, Director Campbell, Steve, I can't remember, but we're above $10 million of total. Where are we? I can't remember, I'm sorry.
We're assuming it's going to be between $12 and $15 million. All total, at the value of the dollars in the respective years.
Yes. And so that is why we don't know if we're even going to get any grant funding or if they're only going to appropriate funds for a loan. But we're just talking, for this resolution, we are just talking about lead line replacement. The previous resolutions did not have to do with lead line replacements. They had to do with other infrastructure related to the 42-inch main, the membrane replacements, which is how we clean the water in the treatment plants, as well as the wastewater, which is completely separate. Those are two different things.
And if I may just add as well, since much of the utility infrastructure is very, very expensive, Penvest is the lowest loan rate that we can go after. Otherwise, we're looking at even bond financing, which often is more expensive over time. So we try to go after the funding that is least costly in order to do the work that is necessary.
Right. That's why I didn't understand why at the last council meeting, we just went for $9 million. If we knew we were going to go from Penvest, I think they counted $9 million in the budget, if I'm correct. Why wasn't we asking for more when we got two more items and resolutions here? And we're paying administrative fees now for 3 applications when we just submitted one.
I'll let Director Tina Campbell respond to that.
Yeah, I'll just respond quickly with that one. So what we approved at the last meeting was for bond funding. So that was for funding that doesn't get, the projects wouldn't be supported by a Penvest. We wouldn't be able to apply for them because they're not eligible for Penvest funding. So that's what we approved at the last one. And
included $9 million in that from Penvest.
No, what was approved was just the bond. We talked about some Penvest funding that's coming up, but that has not been approved or applied for at this point.
That's not part of this.
It's not part of this, no.
Are there any other questions or comments from the public?
Hello, sir.
Hello again. Tony Dastro, 700 block New Holland Avenue. I don't have concerns as it relates to the immediate content of these, but just, I'm kind of reflecting on the bonds and this work that we need to do right now, because ultimately these things increase the cost of living in Lancaster. In the long run, the debt service obviously is incorporated into our taxes. The point, or the thought running through my head rather, I'm not 100% sure about this. I'm just saying it for thought. I know the city at times throughout the years has leveraged revenues from sewer or water to help balance the budget. And maybe it's worth, because like in the charter we made it so you can't sell utilities. Maybe it's worth keeping those funds separate in the long run as well. Because, I don't think anybody would have ever anticipated the PFAS situation, but maybe if water revenues had never been touched over the years, there would have been more to pull from. So I'm not saying that as like a solid, but I think it's worth looking into, like keeping all these funds separate for the long run so that nobody throughout any, because the debt situation for the city is something that occurs over a long period of time, not just any singular person or council. So yeah, that's just what's been going through my head as we discuss this issue, is the idea of keeping sewer and water, their revenues separate and leaving them to those departments. In part because, like, one, this is a need of life and you want to make sure the money's there, but two, we have customers outside of the city. So yeah, those are just some thoughts. Thank you.
Mr. Dastra, while you're thinking, you don't need to comment, but you've just created a $4 million hole in the budget, in the general fund budget, that you would then have to fill.
Yeah, I'm not talking about this year. I'm saying long run.
And Director Campbell, just to clarify a point there, the funds that we use to pay for our water are property tax, our property tax bill, it's our water bill, is that correct?
The funds that we pay for our water are ratepayers.
Ratepayers, so including those non-city residents.
Right, so the debt service that for funds that are borrowed to do capital work in the water fund or the wastewater fund is paid for by those rates.
Thank you.
Any other question or comment from the public on this resolution 27?
Yeah. Just for clarification, the 42-inch main and membrane from the last administration, was that ever replaced?
That's related to resolution 28.
Yeah, that's the next one coming up.
That's the next one.
So I'd be happy to speak to that when we go over that resolution.
The mayor made a comment on it, so I'm reflecting towards her comment, and she was just about to answer.
I'm just making a point of order.
Okay, yeah, because she was just going to answer, and you're interjecting.
Follow the lead of the chair of Public Works. We'll address that in our next resolution.
Okay, the 6,000 to 27,000 per line for the unit replacement, do you know what contractors were put on these, or is that the city's?
Those will be competitively bid.
And because there are currently residents that are paying this amount, because there were some homes that were done as far as the lead line and the replacements. and these homeowners were affected by this cost, and the city has yet to offer any type of, anything to the homeowners.
Ms. Gomez, could I speak to your question? I think part of this is to offer that assistance, actually, is to cover the cost of these 108 so that it's not the homeowner that is covering that cost. And also, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, but this has been ongoing conversations. This is not something that you're presenting as a resolution today.
Actually,
There was $7.1 million that was received from a grant for this issue.
That's different.
Or is the 9.1 along with the 7.1 million added to this funding that you're looking for?
No, this is something different. And this is for the internal water service line inventory, which is still, the inventory is still taking place. There hasn't been any replacement yet of the internal lead service lines.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Just as a reference, one may want to look at the list of projects, because it's very easy to confuse one PennVest application request with another. There is a list of projects, I believe it's currently on the list of projects for which the capital budget is supporting, that we had submitted to council in previous meetings. That's available. I can confirm where it's available, but I'll make sure that you all know where it is so that a link can be found, so that one can take a look at the projects and the funding related to each of the respective projects. There are dozens of projects in water, dozens of projects in wastewater, and a few projects in stormwater.
Sorry, I wasn't sure which list you were talking about. That's actually on our budget page on the website, so you can find it there.
Yeah, thank you.
Question or comment from the public on Resolution 27? Hearing none, I will make a motion to move Resolution 27 to our full meeting of council on April 8th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, then the second and third PennVest resolutions relate to the water main transmission line project that Ms. Gomez had mentioned. We've talked about this at both the March 3rd and March 25th meetings, and we discussed this in more detail in the fall as we talked about our capital plan. This is a large project, approximately $41 million, that is required because our water main coming from the Susquehanna water treatment plant is way past its useful life, and we must have redundancy. This main supports over 2/3 of our water customers, and this is the project that overlaid the bond funding in the graphs that we provided to you on both March 3rd and March 25th. PennVest requires that a project be shovel-ready before we can apply for financing for the project. This project is still working through permits, design, etc. And in fact, while we're trying to be conscientious of the costs, there have been some adjustments over the last several months that confirmed less costly land acquisitions as necessary, because this is a line that needs to go from the Susquehanna. Part of it is the line that goes from the Susquehanna water treatment plant to the Oyster Point Reservoir. However, because of the deadline for a $3 million grant that we have for this project, as well as supply chain times, we may pursue some interim bank financing until the project can be funded fully by PennVest. And if necessary, Director Tina Campbell can speak to that. If we pursue this short-term financing, PennVest requires a resolution saying that our intent is to refinance the short-term financing with them. This is the third PennVest resolution. So the second PennVest resolution is requesting permission to make the application for the PennVest investment. And the third is committing that we would pay for any short-term finance that the intent is to refinance the short-term financing and that we would pay that.
Thank you, Director Campbell. Just a quick question. so the interim financing, is that being pursued due to the urgency of this particular project?
Part of it is to make sure that we have shovel-ready and can move from one phase into the next phase without several-year interruption.
And is there an amount on that interim that the city might be seeking?
That's the 3 million.
Rough amount.
That's the 27 million, sorry.
Yeah, so that would be about 27 million. We're not sure if we're going to need to pursue the interim financing yet or not, but it would be mainly for the pieces of equipment that are needed or actual pipe that's needed that would be supplied for the project. So.
And that's critical at this moment for several reasons, but the key reasons are that if one does not have the equipment or the material available, everything comes to a halt. The potential for supply chain interruption has been great since the advent of COVID. It has changed somewhat, but we may have different challenges as we go forward. But because it is a critical need, being able to purchase or have the ability to purchase the equipment and the materials for these 8 miles or so of infrastructure would allow us to get the work, once the work gets started, we can move forward without interruption.
Sorry, we're playing a little tag team here. I did just want to add, Steve mentioned a $3 million grant. We do have a $3 million grant for this project that's been awarded. There's a deadline on that funding, and so that is another piece of this interim financing. We would be able to use that $3 million to purchase some of this equipment, but getting all of it is what we're looking at this point.
Thank you for that additional context. I'll open up to questions from full council or the committee, the Public Works Committee. Council President.
Thank you, Councilor Hirsch. So we've been talking about the large diameter water main replacement for quite some time. Director Campbell, can you just briefly talk about what phase we're in? Because I know we've been phasing this project because you mentioned it's 8 miles of infrastructure.
Right. There are 3 phases. And the numbering often gets confusing. One phase is from the Susquehanna River to the Susquehanna Water Treatment Plant.
Okay.
That's the raw water, bringing the raw water into the treatment plant. The second part is bringing water from the Susquehanna Water Treatment Plant to the Oyster Point Reservoir. That's the long distance line. That's the steel line that has its useful life. It's on paper, useful life ended quite some time ago, and we need to address that, or else there's the potential, and I don't want to scare, we're not scared about this, but there's a potential for a break that may create major problems that we don't want to be dealing with as an emergency, and that's why we were trying to do it this way. And the third part is from the reservoir to the distribution system. Most of that part has already been completed or paid for, and much of that is currently underway. The part from the river to the water treatment plant still needs some design and confirmation of sites for acquisition or for playing with. And then the main part has largely been designed, but we need to complete the design so that it is actually shovel-ready and can be bid as appropriate.
Thank you. And I appreciate you saying that. There's not really cause for alarm, but this is incredibly important that we get it done. And I'm just to kind of also encapsulate the amount of work that this project takes. I'm assuming that there are endless permits with, you mentioned permitting with other municipalities along the way, rights of way, easements, that sort of thing, like with every individual property owner? Usually with most municipalities, we're trying to use existing rights of way to the extent practical, but sometimes it is private property, sometimes it is municipal property in a variety of different municipalities, sometimes it's negotiating with Amtrak or other federal level infrastructure. Where we can share existing infrastructure, we can usually keep the costs down somewhat. And so where we could identify
lines or infrastructure and rights of way that can be shared, that's where we lean towards. That's what we try to negotiate.
Thank you. I just want to take a moment to reorient us in the project and also appreciate the amount of work that has gone into planning to get us to just this point.
Thank you, Council President. Councilor Ahmed.
Thank you, Council Person. Thank you, Director Campbell. Council President started kind of getting into the question I was going to ask, but given that the water is used by other municipalities, are there any intermunicipal agreements that we could try to negotiate where they could be putting up some of the costs? Or I appreciate someone using some of the public right of way and everything, but is there any way we could go to the other municipalities and say, can you help support this project in X way, or we're going to raise rates for other municipalities by X amount?
So in principle, yes, the rates are different for outside city customers than they are for inside city customers, but it is one water system, one water utility, which is a little bit different in concept than the wastewater, which we share it with a variety of partners, and we need the consent of each partner every time we're doing infrastructure that affects the whole. But in this case, we try to find the most effective, cost-effective, least annoying way to get the work done, and then it is a different rate is charged to the internal ratepayers than it is to the external ratepayers.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. I would hope that the city isn't taking the majority of the burden. I understand we own the infrastructure and it's a city asset, but I do feel that other municipalities should be stepping up and paying their fair share as well. So whether that's through rate changes through the PUC or whatever it may be, I think it's important that we think about that for the future.
We do work through the PUC. It needs to be PUC approvable in all aspects, whether it's external or internal ratepayers. This is one reason it often takes as long as it does, because we try to be as cost effective as possible, and we explore alternatives that it may be costly to do the engineering to explore the different alternatives, but it hopefully reduces the actual capital costs to all parties involved.
Thank you. That concludes my questions, Councilor.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilor Khalid.
Thank you, Councilor Hirsch. Just a quick question, and what financial impact, if there is any, on the water rates for city residents?
For the waterways?
Rates.
For the rates. This is part of the presentations we've made over the last several months, where the city of Lancaster is about to undertake some major investments, partly because of aging infrastructure, partly in order to meet the requirements of the lead service line replacement, which is an unfunded mandate, partly because of the vagaries of addressing PFAS, the forever chemicals, and their prevalence in our water system. In addition, we're looking at leak detection so that we are reducing the amount of water, treated water that we pay for, that is escaping through leaks into the soil. There's a lot of capital projects that we described both in the fall and in the recent presentations that address a lot of these concerns. For better or for worse, this $40-some-odd million investment is in the scope of the larger investments that we're about to undertake over the course of the next several years in the moderate range. And it's part of what we call our ongoing restoration and investment work. Whether we had a consent decree for wastewater or not, whether lead service lines existed or not, whether PFAS existed or not, we would have to replace these lines. Or else risk an impingement on access to clean water in our water system. And we're supplying water for 150,000 people. So it is not an immodest expense. It is an impactful expense, and it is a necessary expense. But it is not it's not the highest expenses that we're likely to encounter over the next several years.
But it will impact, it will have impact on the water rates for the residents anyway. Right?
Yes, it will. Both internal and external ratepayers.
And this reimbursement will it affect the city's overall debt, or?
Yes, it will. Do you want to speak to that, Tina? Yes, it will, but do you want to talk to how it will?
Yeah, it is a loan, so it would be a part of the overall city debt focused on the water fund.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor, I think I saw you in the question.
Thank you, Councilor Hurst. Just make sure I'm connecting the dots here, piggybacking off of Councilor Ahmed's question. Just to clarify, city ratepayers are disproportionately paying for this because the debt is paid by ratepayers, water ratepayers, or?
Yes, please, because it's a big calculus.
No, so how the water rates work is that we do need to go to the PUC for any rate increases outside of the city. So we I don't want to get into too many details of PUC rate cases. We're going for a PUC rate case now, so we're looking to increase external rates, not internal rates at this time, or at least that's the hope. PUC may require us to increase internal rates, but our goal is to look at external rates at this time. Once you put in a PUC rate case, you have to wait another 18 months at least in order to put in another one. And projects need to be completed before the PUC will consider them to increase the rate. And so our goal with timing of this is to be able to put in another PUC rate case as soon as this project is complete, so that external customers would also see that increase at that time.
So we look at rate increases considering these projects and the debt costs of that and the rate increases for both internal and external clients.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification.
Are there any other questions from Council or the Public Works Committee? Any questions or comments from the public?
Just to be sure, are we talking about Darlene? Angie, we're talking about both resolution 28 and 29, is that correct? Or are we just talking about 20? Okay, so we're talking about two. Okay, so I think council, I think you're all asking the right questions. I do believe that no one's trying to say this is not a need. We understand the water, and I'm sitting on Home Road. She explained a lot to me, so I do have a clear understanding about that. The question is how we're financing it. And that's what council needs to be concerned about. And Councilman Lashard, I appreciate your asking the impact on the residents, because that's what council needs to be concerned about. We're talking about borrowing $27 million that we will pay back on bonds that we already approved. And I understand the process that we need to have this work shovel ready, then that means we jump the gun to borrow the money on the bonds because this process has to happen first. And that's what council needs to be looking at, because one of the things we understand we already approved the bonds, but now to say we're going to go get another loan for $27 million just so we can be ready to spend the money that we get from the bonds so that the project's shovel ready, and then we're going to take the money that we get from Penvest, I guess, and the bonds and pay this $27 million back. So this is going to be like a short-term loan, but in the process, we're paying interest on that. So I think council needs to get into the financing and not look into who's saying we need this water line, and everybody understands the stormwater. Everybody, well, maybe they don't understand it, but the need is there. We know the city is old. We understand the EPA. We understand what's going on with our water. But the fact that our water rates and things are going to go up is a result of council approving, borrowing money when it's sitting and we're not using it and we're paying interest on it. Now this week we're talking about getting a loan on the money that we just borrowed to put us in more debt. So I think, you need to make sure that you understand exactly what we're doing, because this is a greater impact on the homeowner and the taxpayer.
If I could just say, I hear your concerns and frustrations, Ms. Byrd. I think that the way that this is set up is that we have to borrow the money, spend the money, put the projects in the ground, and then go for a rate increase to then pay ourselves back. And when we go to the PUC, we're never, I don't think ever, have gotten 100% of what we requested. And so it is an upside down process, and that is something that we have talked about in terms of effectuating change at the state level with how the PUC does this. But they are also there as a means of protecting ratepayers, specifically those that who are not represented by city council, who live outside of the city. So they are there specifically to prevent any kind of price gouging or raising of rates unfairly. But the rules are the rules, and we have to spend the money first before we can get the rate increase, which goes to your point about where are we borrowing this money from, and how are we expeditiously getting the projects in the ground. And I think those are the questions that council should continue to ask, especially because we're going to be putting timelines for projects on our capital plan that we'll be presenting to you in June. And so those are the things that you should be monitoring, because the bond funds, I will say very clearly, historically, the city has not been good about getting projects in the ground utilizing bond funds. And that's been a legacy that has been from, previous administrations that we are trying to change. And part of that starts with having a capital plan and a really clear sequence of what we need to borrow for what projects and in what sequence, and not biting off more than we can chew. Because the list of projects that was originally presented was much longer than the one that you got.
Thank you, Mayor Sarachi.
Is that fair?
That's very fair. Thank you.
Councilor Hirsch?
Yes.
Related to that, and Director Campbell, you can just confirm, additionally, PUC rate cases take a long time. It's my understanding that from the time you actually request a rate case, it's typically about 9 months to maybe not get all that you would ask for. So I imagine that planning is also, that just makes the planning all that more difficult, and also projects to get done even more timely. So.
Yes, the timing is critical, not only in terms of getting it started and completed, but in order for us to anticipate the next borrowing, if it's a subsequent phase to get done, that work needs to get done within the 9 to 18 months that it may take for that approval.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from the public?
Yeah, so I understand that the PUC have deadlines and their projects need to be completed. So because we can't meet the deadlines because projects are not being completed, this is where we are. You mentioned 150,000 people that are accessing this water. There's about 60,000 people in the city of Lancaster as residents. What measures are you using to pursue the townships and counties that are receiving water from us? Because we should not be the only ones held accountable to pay this. Like, have you sent out requests? Have you sent out any type of formal made meetings with the townships to bring forth any type of revenue on their part?
Oops, sorry. It's a very fair question, but it's the nature of a PUC. The Public Utility Commission establishes for our water system not only the rates, but the means by which infrastructure investment can be compensated or reimbursed. and we cannot make changes to those. We have to work alongside and within the limits of the PUC limit or requirements and legal limitations. It does, as the mayor had indicated, allow for the reimbursement, which is via the rate increases that take place independently. There's rate increases at the exterior, which we've proposed for this year, for the exterior ratepayers, which is hopefully going to be paying for part of that interest for what we borrow in the short term until it gets installed and accepted, at which point the PUC, after the 9 to 18 months, can say, yes, that is approvable and therefore reimbursable. And then we would enter into either another rate case for inside ratepayers and or outside ratepayers as well. So it is kind of a seesaw, but to your point, we're within the limits of, and we're run by the PUC, the regulations of the PUC, in terms of how we access money from outside. But it's a very, very good question, a very important question to the conversation.
Yeah, I have another question.
Sure.
Sorry. Okay, the other question is, when you, just for the record, is the Public Works Committee present today? Because you keep mentioning that, like who's on the Public Works Committee? Is it just Mr. Campbell?
It's myself, Councilor Diaz, and Councilor Ahmed. Or, sorry, I'm looking at Public Safety, Councilor Calise and Councilor Diaz. So the three of us are present, yes.
Okay. And how many are in the committee?
Just the three of us.
Just the three of you? Okay.
Yep.
And then you had mentioned you were going to refi the first short-term financing. Are you saying that there is already a loan in place that you're looking to request or pursue this funding to refinance what is already in place? Can you clarify that?
So the short-term financing would be as needed, and that would be refinanced to the Penvest loan, which is the administration resolution number 28. Once that Penvest loan is ready to be funded.
So it is already. No.
Can you, if you have a question, can you just ask it in the mic?
No, she answered.
Oh, she doesn't have a question. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments from the public?
Hello, I'm Diane Desmond. I live off Route 30 near the State Police. I wanted to just give you a little bit of scope of what I'm currently dealing with in my apartment community. We saw from 2024 to 2025, a 67% rate increase on our water bill. And I'm not going to blame all of that on these very necessary projects, because I understand that that could be price gouging from my apartment complex. However, just because there was such a drastic rate increase, and that's something that we directly feel in our pockets, what range of increase should we as citizens anticipate for these projects, and when do you predict we may see those increases hit our bills?
Could you just say your name again, please?
Diane Desmond.
Ms. Desmond, thank you for your question. I actually don't think you're a City of Lancaster water customer.
Oh, good, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I think just from where you described where you live.
Yeah, I'm right next to the State Police, so.
Yeah. We do not serve that area.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, and there's a water distribution map that's on our website that you can just check your address. But
thank you so much.
I think that's right.
Any other question or comment from the public on Resolution 28 or Resolution 29? Hearing none, I'm going to motion to move these together to our full meeting of council on April 8th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. The only thing I just want to say about, it's not lost on us what the impact is going to be to customers, and I think that's why, I'll just speak from my perspective as someone that works in government finance, a lot of it comes down to figuring out, okay, where are the funds, what are they eligible to be used for, and you kind of have to game them in a certain way to get the best outcome. And I think part of this process is, we're issuing bonds, but then we're also going for a PennVest loan, which my understanding is we can finance that at a lower rate. Director Tina Campbell's waving her head yes, then, a bond. And then we also have grant applications, which actually is what we're going to get into now. But I'm only just emphasizing to say that it's a capital mix. There's a mixture of different funding sources that are going into each of these products. But with that, I do want to talk about these grants. So, Director Campbell, do you want to talk about resolution number 30?
Yes, resolution number 30 is authorizing the filing of an application for funding through the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, DCNR, that's a state entity, Community Conservation Partnership Program, in the amount of $1.385035 million. I'm not sure if what you have says 900,000 or 1.385 million.
What I had as of, actually, no, I think we got an updated one in the second email. Yes.
Okay. So the 1.385 is the correct one. We anticipate that this is for South End Park. We anticipate that South End Park will cost approximately $2.7 million total. DCNR limits us to asking for 50%, and that's what the request is for here. We're anticipating the match being partly from local shares, which we've applied for separately to the tune of approximately $1 million. There is a proviso, since we're just making an application, there's a chance that we don't get all that we've been asked for or that we're asking for. They will tell us if we're not going to be eligible for the full amount, and we would be able to consent to either accepting the lower amount or not doing the project or changing the project altogether. But this is asking for permission to make the application.
Thank you, Director Campbell. And I'll just add, it's written in the resolution text, what some of these improvements will be. They include upgrades to play equipment, surfaces, multi-purpose field, basketball court upgrade, improved ADA access, water play, new fencing, improved lighting and seating. So just some of the things that we hopefully will see happening at South End Park soon.
And I will say that this is one of the more creative endeavors that we've done recently, partly as a result of the Parks and Recreation Open Space Master Planning process, but then separate consultants that worked with the community in different ways than we've worked with them in the past, where people's ideas were pasted together. There's actually a small skate park, as well as a roller park for small bicycles, etc. So they've been able to maximize the utility of the South End Park for active recreation as well as passive recreation.
Thank you. I'll open it up to question or comment from the Public Works Committee or full council. Anything from the public?
How big is the South End Park?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure. Do you know where it is? It ended up being a little bit larger than we expected based on the setbacks on the site, as well as vegetation that could be relocated to be able to make use of active recreation and this skate park area. But I can get you the precise, and in fact, it's on the Engage Lancaster website.
It says 1.2 acre park.
That's about right. 1.2 acre. 1.2 acres. Oh, correct. It's not a huge park. It's certainly nothing like Reservoir or Musser or Buchanan, but we are able to pack a lot of very interesting activities in even that small an area.
And then my other question is the 1.38.
Do you want to come to the
sorry. You should sit right there.
So the 1.38 is for both the South End and Reservoir Park, or?
Just
No. Okay, and how much is it for oh, we're not talking about that one yet?
That's
Okay.
Then I can just.
any other. Okay.
Yeah, so I could just mention, you had mentioned the people's ideas are, in order to cut waste or cut funding or try to save as much, are you using city residents, workers, skilled workers, Thaddeus Stevens, people that are actually in the city that can do these for less costs in terms of looking for contractors, bidders, because it's been known that we're wasting a lot of money and funding on taxpayer dollar to recruit outside of the city of Lancaster to do these projects, which take time, because commuters don't have the time to get in here at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. to start projects. And we see them leaving at 3:30 p.m. when they should be leaving at normal business hours. So for these projects as a whole and as a city, can you have some type of consideration to utilize the residents of the city of Lancaster who are in training in Thaddeus Stevens, graduates, skilled workers. There's multiple skilled workers. We took pride in our city when we built, I've been here 30 years. The residents have always taken pride in their city, in community parks, in upgrading and cleaning and doing everything. We're seeing more outsiders coming into our city that are costly. It's very cost effective. A lot of them don't pay taxes here. You're burdening the residents on these projects that we can cut costs on, and it's shameful that we continuously have to go outside of the city of Lancaster with 50, 60,000 residents and say that there's no one here that can take this bid for a cheaper price. It's not fair. You know what I mean? We take pride in building our city. It's always been like that since the 50s, 40s. Use the people here so that these costs can be substantiated or lessened. I'm just asking for consideration.
Well, as you may know, we do have a relatively extensive self-performance part of our work. Much of our paving is self-performed. We can perform 34 to 50% more paving because we self-perform rather than contract out. As a value engineering effort, we can look at what parts of any of the parks, whether it's this park or any park that we're looking for funding for, can be done as self-performance. It does not mean that self-performance is done without any expense. It does mean a different level of administration, oversight, purchasing materials, etc. But generally speaking, parts of projects can be done as self-performance. The challenge with working with Thaddeus Stevens or with other organizations is putting in place a longer-term program, which is not off the table, but a long-term program that not only supports skill sets, but skill sets that are transferable into their work experience as well. As you know, Thaddeus Stevens currently has a design and work program where the students actually build affordable housing in different parts of the city. That's where they're supervised by journeymen or journey people who are overseeing the work to ensure that it meets the construction and design and construction standards of the building industry. It often is, there are trade-offs in doing it that way, but some of the trade-offs may be appropriate trade-offs. But I take your point that if we're not able to find, not only if we're not able to find local contractors, but if the costs are excessive or if we're not getting all the funding that we're looking for and we still want to perform this park, those are options that we can look at. Joe Jackson Park, for instance, is an example where we're more likely to do most of that park with our own resources, in order not only to keep the costs down, but also to stay on a schedule that's accelerated.
Thanks for that additional context, Director Campbell. I'm glad you mentioned the houses that Stevens students built, because I just passed the one they are building currently on Hillside Ave the other day, and it's, I remember when that came to us, and to see it get built, it's neat. Are there any other questions or comments from the public on Resolution 30? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to move Resolution 30 to our full meeting of council on April 8th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then, last and possibly least, this is a request for an application for funding through again, DCNR for Community Conservation Partnership in the amount of $74,960. I'm hoping that you had that amendment as well, to be used for the master planning of Reservoir Park. We expect the master planning effort to be approximately $150,000. This is a 50% grant request, and we fully expect that will be able to come through. But the request is for us to have the permission to make the application.
Thank you, Director Campbell. Are there any questions or comments from Public Works Committee or full council? Councilor Ahmed.
The request is for $74,960 rather, and the total cost is anticipated at $149.
Thank you, Councilor Hirsch. Director Campbell, thank you for your remarks. And just real quick question, this is for the master plan, this isn't for the actual improvements?
That is correct. So the nature of master planning is that it means reaching out to the community, which has been, as I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, has been hungry for this work to be done for several years anyway. But things have changed throughout the city. It's also the probably best location for Fairground Park. It has not only very mature trees, but it also has a substrate that allows for playground equipment and for carnival equipment on a temporary basis. It's also part of the East End Community Small Area Plan. So there's ideas that are being generated in terms of what the recreational needs are for this particular community in large, as well as trying to be consistent with the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which identified local, neighborhood, and regional needs to be met. So it's an opportunity for reaching out to the community, engaging them, hopefully in as dynamic a manner as we have with South End Park and others, so that it can address the concerns and the needs that need to be addressed today, not in the last Parks and Recreation Master Plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ahmed. Any other questions or comments from council? From the public on Resolution 31?
I just want to agree with Mr. Campbell when he said about the needs changing, and I'm wondering if we're not jumping the gun on Reservoir Park as far as we're planning, because as you know, the county prison is going to become a different place and a different site. So what will the need be for Reservoir Park when that happens? And are we willing to go back and reinvest more money and to come up with a plan now for $1.49 million, which is just a plan, knowing that there's going to be other changes? One of the things I want to encourage council is there is no such plan for a park in the southeast area. And I think if we're going to talk about putting a park, we have this location behind Jackson Middle School where the community has engaged and has spoken loud and clear. That's what we would like to see there, a park. And we're just looking for council to come up with a plan to say, well, let's see what we can do here. I mean, we keep hearing we're spending millions and millions of dollars in the parks. We do have some top lots in the southeast area, but we do not have a park in the southeast area. So I just say don't jump the gun for Reservoir Park in your planning on what it's going to be like, because as the county prison comes on, that whole block, that need may change. And we don't want to invest in something and then we're turning around and borrowing more money or seeking other grant money to change it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bird.
Yeah, and I just want to piggyback on that because I have been asking the mayor since she first took this position, that my concern was Reservoir Park. We talked about this in the beginning of her becoming mayor. So there are specifically, things such as the playground. So I don't know if it was 7-8 years that you have been mayor, but I've been asking for the playground, and I know it's not going to cost $1.something million just to do the playground. The pool is okay. I don't know what's going to happen with taking away, what was there, which was the arena, the hockey arena. It was dismantled completely. It could have been used for something else, like the children playing baseball. There's teams that are associated with schools and they don't have a turf to play in. I think Reservoir Park would have been excellent because there was stools there. I mean, there was, it was a whole hockey arena. All you had to do was basic improvements. To take it down completely is depriving the children from usage, and it's just sitting there for years with nothing. It's just an empty space. So I understand that, you said 1.49 million for Reservoir?
149,000.
149,000. That plan for 140, you said 150,000. Do you have specifics? Like you were very specific, Hearst, when you said the basketball field, when we were talking about the South End Park, you were very specific. Can you give me specifics on what the 150,000 would be for on Reservoir Park? The design.
So this is a master planning effort. It's not the design effort. The master planning effort means reaching out to the local community, to adjacent neighbors, to others who may use the park for whatever reasons they might want to, and identify what is of interest to them. What are the space requirements for that? What are the noise implications of some of that? Are there aspects of the Parks and Recreation Open Space Master Plan that need to be recognized because it is such a centrally located park in principle? Because it has special characteristics such as being available as a fairgrounds type park where no other park in the city has that availability without making major damage. How does one make use of that? And so similar to the processes that got us from conception to more detailed design for South End Park and others, it would be inviting the community at whatever level to come in and describe what's important to them, what's interesting to them. Hopefully it would be a series of meetings so that people can share their ideas, and consultants would come back several times to say, this is what we heard you say, is this what you actually mean, and how do we put something that takes up this kind of space, which might be a ball field, adjacent something that takes up this kind of space, which might be a skate park, if those are the types of things that in consensus that community believes are appropriate. So the master planning effort is to generate the ideas as you're talking about, because you've presented several different ideas, and many other people may have other ideas as well that they think may be appropriate for them and their own families. But it would not be the specific design. It would be making sure that here are programmatically ways that these kinds of spaces can fit in this kind of a location. I do want to say that it will be done a bit later in the process than the anticipated schedule for the South End, for the East End small area plan, in the sense that that's currently underway. And so some ideas may still be generated from that, which would be able to be talked about on the table, but not be ruled by it. The prison is a county site And what we want with and maybe I should ask Chris to speak, but what we're hoping is going to happen with the East End small area plan is community-based ideas on what can and should happen at that site that might influence decision-making at the county level, whereas Reservoir Park is ours. And that's something that we can be making decisions on rather sacrosanct within the limits of that park.
And when we think about the Southeast plan, we are aware that the prison and reservoir is in the southwest, correct? So when we're asking for a plan for the southeast of Lancaster, we're not talking about the southwest. I mean, if you look at every quadrant, you have a plan for the city. Reservoir, and I think the plan that I saw on the southeast plan includes reservoir, the prison, and then some of the southeast area. So it's both southwest and southeast.
Are there other questions or comments for the public on Resolution 31?
I just want to say one thing, sorry. Just real quickly, just to, and as far as plans in Reservoir Park, and, you know, getting the folks involved and the residents, I've been living there for 20-something years. I've bought my house in 99. So I want to make certain that we are the community in Reservoir Park area, we're very informed. We have a neighbors engagement, you know, it's all, we're very active together. So we know what we want. We've been stressing our opinions for quite some time. So it's not like, you know, we don't know what we want. And it's been shared with the mayor to, like, primarily the park itself, because they opened it up to, I don't want to say, without offending anyone, offenders, child offenders live there in the houses that is close by Reservoir Park, and they come into the park and they do things and they leave things that we continuously have to clean up. And they write all over that it's old. The play yard is old. It needs to be reconstructed. So that was our major concern for the last 8 years. They put in a pool, they put in the wheels, the bike wheels. I mean, there's a lot of improvements in the park, but as far as maintaining that park, you know, fixing the grass, adding, you know, the beauty in the park, it's not being done. We as a community, we have to do it ourselves, even if it's cleaning up stuff on the floor. So yeah, we are just more concerned about picking up a needle when our kids are going down a slide and making sure that it's cleaned, and maybe taping up cracks within the actual set, the play unit set, and yeah, so it's safe for the kids to go down. So it's old, it needs replaced.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez.
Tony Dastra, 700 block of New Holland Avenue. I don't have a problem with us approving the grant application. I think it's worth applying for and seeing where it goes. But I do think that Ms. Bird is making a good point about parks in the Southeast in general. I think Ms. Gomez is as well. You know, and I want to just kind of maybe say a good thing is we could potentially use this program to fund those sort of parks in the future. So I think it's worth the city applying for the grant. I do also have some level of reservation because of the planning that needs to occur with the prison. But I understand you're working from the frame of reference you have right now, and I think this is a very reasonable thing to do.
Thank you, Mr. Dust. Are there other comments or questions from the public? Hearing none, I will make a motion to move Resolution 31 to our full meeting of council on April 8th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that concludes the Public Works Committee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Hirsch. We will now go to the Community Planning Committee. Councilor Craig.
Thank you, Council President. Community Planning has one item on the agenda this evening. It's Administration Bill Number 3, 2025, authorizing the sale of real property.
And that's me, Councilor Craig. Thank you. Currently, the ordinance sets forth how we are able to sell property in the city of Lancaster, and that is through two options, either by sealed bid or through public auction. This Administrative Bill 3 would authorize the sale of real property through a third method, which is through a licensed real estate broker. And so I would call your attention to the section in the ordinance that specifies that if we were to do this, that council would approve the process for how to select the real estate agent, et cetera, et cetera. So that, I believe, is spelled out in the ordinance that was provided to council. So this is really a way that we can utilize our home rule status to effectuate change, to make more efficient how we do certain things. And that's the gist of this bill in front of you for consideration.
Thank you, Mayor. Curious to know, what was the process before? Was that we would do a resolution and go over the resolution and go from that instead, and then once we went and got into home rule at the beginning of January, that allowed us the ability to change the narrative, so to speak.
The way that we did it before was always council approved the sale of a property. What this piece of legislation is doing is not changing that. What it is doing is adding a method for how we can sell a piece of property that council approves to be sold. Home rule, the thing that changed about home rule is that it gives us some flexibility where we don't, where we're able to have flexibility to sell real property. And that can now include using a real estate agent, which means that the property gets listed on an MLS listing, that more people see it, that other realtors can talk to their clients about projects they're working on, and not just rely on an ad in the Sunday paper that says that we're accepting bids.
Excellent, thank you. So we'll have a wider range of people that are available or that could be available to purchase.
Yeah, that will know about the property being for sale.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee?
Councilor Craig, if I may. Mayor Sarachi, would council still have to approve the methodology if there was a property that the city wanted to sell, or is that up to the administration to determine which route they want to go to sell the property?
It is my understanding, and I have to actually go back and check. I have to read it again because I read it a day ago, and I'm just not sure that I'm 100 on this. But what I think is that when we bring to council property or want to change how we have a property for sale, we would need to get council's approval for this method, and then there's a process for how we're selecting a realtor and all of that stuff.
I think it'd be great just for the next meeting if we could just have that clarification.
I think it's in the ordinance. If you read the ordinance, I think it's there. I haven't read it in a day, so I don't want to misspeak.
Thank you, Mayor.
So currently, I mean, the way it's read here, I think it was number 3, it would provide compensation to be paid to the real estate broker. Is that what we're doing currently?
No.
Or it says the addition to?
I'm trying to find it in the list of 17 attachments. 1 second.
It's right after right below section 1.
Yeah, I have to find thank you, Chris. A handout, yes. So right now, we're not paying a real estate broker because we can't use a real estate broker.
Exactly.
Did that answer your question, Councilor Diaz?
So why would we?
So, but right here, it's stating that by changing it, the person will be able to negotiate, and we would have to compensate the real estate agent, is that, or broker?
Yes, we would pay a real estate broker for their work.
For their services. Currently,
No.
we do the same?
No, we ain't doing it.
Currently, we're precluded from using a real estate broker.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. That's what I needed to know.
Councilor Craig, maybe this would help as well. And Mayor Sarachi, typically, realtors get paid once the sale of the property is complete. They're not paid prior to.
Correct.
So I would imagine that would happen in this situation.
So upon recommendation of the mayor, city council may, by resolution, authorize that specific parcels of real property be sold through the use of a licensed real estate broker, so that we would be bringing to you a resolution that would authorize the use of a real estate broker. That resolution must authorize the same, which would provide the terms, conditions, and basis, which is point number one. Number two, provide who has authorization to negotiate an offer and accept an offer submitted to the city. Three, I'm paraphrasing here, provide for the compensation to be paid to the broker and require reporting to city council is number four. And five, set forth the time frame during which offers of sale may be solicited for such property by the licensed real estate broker. So all of this would be part of a resolution that would come to council when we wanted to use a realtor.
Are there any further questions from the council as a whole?
Thank you, Councilor Craig. I know this is the first reading, and this is just the committee, but, I do have some questions around what the process would look like of the selection of the realtor, and, also, I understand it would expand the, possible market for a property to be sold. But I do think that there might be, real estate is a very competitive market, and I just have some questions around how we decide which realtor, that would, and I know this, maybe these are some questions we can talk about at the next meeting as well, but.
Yeah, I will say that, like, the redevelopment authority of the city of Lancaster has a realtor. The board hired them, and we can find out more information about that process. I think that this is step one, and then there would be a follow-up step that, we would certainly bring back to you a process for how we do that, but we do procurement on a regular basis to hire people with expertise in different areas. And so I imagine we'd issue a request for proposals and vet candidates the same way we do when we hire consultants to provide engineering or financial support, whatever we do.
Yeah, and I think that was one of my questions, is would this be a city-appointed real estate firm that this does all of the real estate sales, or would it just be every single time we want to sell a property, it's just open to all realtors?
I think that for the sake of efficiency, we'd probably hire someone for a period of time, but also the city doesn't have a lot of real estate that it's trying to sell on a regular basis.
So we don't.
And I don't think that that would be a thing ongoing. I'll say that for this, this is really born out of the lack of interest in Station 6 property. That property received one sealed bid response, and I did not feel that was sufficient to only have one response. And so this is a way to get more responses.
Yeah, I guess I would just hope that we would still have the ability of the intention of what that property becomes.
That's also through a whole zoning process.
Yeah.
And so, and that information that we've collected related to zoning for that particular parcel would be part of the sale. And typically, sales of properties in the city of Lancaster are contingent, have contingencies related to them getting zoning approval for anything that they would use the property for, which is the opportunity for the public to weigh in if they don't like the concept that's being there. And so we would likely sign a sales agreement that would be contingent upon them getting the approvals that they need. And if they don't get them, then the property wouldn't be sold. That is a very standard practice.
Thank you, and that answers some of my questions, but I look forward to discussing this in more.
Yeah, if you want to send a follow-up, Counselor Ahmed, of other questions that you have, I'll make sure to get that out to council before our next meeting, so you have that information.
Thank you. My questions.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from council as a whole? Questions from the public?
Stay right there, Donnie. Stay first. Yes, Darlene Bird. I think council needs to be very cautious in what they're doing. I think this goes under the administration code. I think once you put that in place, as one of the things you would be deciding is who has the authority to make those decisions. So if it becomes the administration, then council, it's not in your hand. I think that, number one, we would need to look at a list of properties that the city has. Number two, we have a record of changing things for one thing. I understand it's Station 6 that we are, trying to get rid of. And we in the city have a very good habit of changing how we do business for one thing, and it doesn't work out always. For instance, zoning, especially when we came to the Airbnb or short rooming houses, changed it in one meeting, then we changed it again because it didn't work. I think council needs to be very cautious. I do understand about the Station 6. I think there still are other means out there. I do think that we all know that once the city would sell a property and it goes before zoning, the zoning is picked by council and the mayor, so why wouldn't they always have that option of appealing or seeking a variance to have it changed to do what they want. I mean, if we're not putting stipulations in the deed on what that property can become, I think we do lose what you were asking about, Councilman Hamed. I would also like to see a list of properties that the city owns and maybe any that they are considering selling. I mean, maybe at this time, it's only that one. But we all know once we give up that power from council to the administration, you don't come back to it. And I think this was set aside in the home rule under the administration code that you can put that. I don't think it was set from home rule to say this is something that we want. I think one of the things that you need to understand about home rule is that the administration has to come up with an administration code on how we function, and a lot of things that we ask about in the home rule was going to be addressed through the administration code, which council has to adopt. I don't think we got there yet, so to put stuff in now when that has not been adopted is jumping the gun. I mean, slow down, take some time. It's not something that needs to happen now at this moment. Thank you.
Just add, it's a fair point that this is part of the administrative code moving forward, and it is true that I am presenting this. I asked our solicitor to present this because this is real property that council has already approved the sale of, and that we have not been successful selling. There is no authority related to the sale of property that the administration gets without council approval. And so I want to just make that clear. And the other piece is that all of the council, all of the city properties, Ms. Bird, you can find them on by doing a query on building blocks, and you can see all of the properties that are owned by the city, parks, all of the buildings, etc. There is no plan at this time to sell any additional property. We just want to sell this one that council approved last year that we still have not sold.
And just in reference, even when we talked about the redevelopment authority, when they're taking people's homes, they don't just give it to they have a realtor that comes out to sell it, and different people get to bid on it. So keep that in mind. So this is city property that we own. So I would keep that in mind.
Really fast. Yes, and it is a competitive market, and there are a lot of programs not being used for first-time home buyers, and there are a lot of families that could use properties across the city that is being taken by bidders. there's a reason why the city precluded this from using real estate agents. There is a reason why. So I want you to really, really look at what we're saying, because it's very, very important. Decisions cannot be reversed. And a lot of citizens, residents in Lancaster are very much affected by this administration because of changes. So I want you to think about that really good, especially our children and grandbabies.
Tony Dasher, 700 block of New Holland Avenue. So this is concerning to me because the way I see this is as creating a method of private sale for public goods. There is a reason I think the bidding process is in place, and there, as far as I understand, there's nothing prohibiting us from being more open about our advertising. We're just required to advertise in the newspaper of general circulation. This should not be the way we handle this, because when you use a realtor, I mean, I recognize the argument, like it's valid. You do open up the potential for a transaction to occur, but you also channelize those communications. You don't ensure that this is an open, transparent public or process for the whole public. And I understand that it is arduous to try and sell a property. I frankly do not think we should sell Station 6. I think there are other solutions to do with Station 6. But I'm generally frustrated in right now us putting forward amendments like this, or like this is an administration bill, but this, or a recent zoning amendment that was not presented at the last meeting because there's some pause elsewhere, but just expressing a frustration I have when we the City Planning Commission, weren't made aware of the disapproval, or at least I wasn't. I listened to the meeting twice and it wasn't discussed that that zoning amendment had been disapproved. And I feel like what we're working through right now is a bunch of ad hoc things, and we need to focus on these bulk products like the entire zoning code and the entire administration code. I think we're moving too fast. I think that there are valid questions to be had about this process because it could be exclusionary to the public and create solutions that the whole public does not feel confidence in, because a realtor could reach out to somebody and sell somebody on a dream that the public doesn't want. The use might be allowed, but it doesn't mean that it's something that the public's looking forward to. So I do think the bidding process is the one we should stick with at this current moment in time. I, as a resident, am open to hearing about other alternatives, potentially like this in the future, but I think this is a big shift from the way government's supposed to operate. This is trying to operate government like a business, and government should operate like a government.
Mr. Dasher, just to clarify a point, the Rec Commission zoning was not disapproved.
It was disapproved by the County Planning Commission.
Oh, okay, you didn't specify that.
My apologies.
This body did not.
No, they approved, Planning Commission approved. I'm just expressing the frustration we weren't made aware of that at Planning Commission.
Understood. Okay. I will just say that, we are planning to bring the first tranche, and I think Councilor Ahmed reported on this as part of his transition committee report, that we're going to plan to bring the first tranche of an admin code changes to council in June, followed successfully an August-September timeframe with the second tranche. This can wait until then. I am really just trying to fulfill the wishes of this body that you wanted to sell. We collectively decided that was what the need was, so it's fine.
Post another public bid then. We shouldn't change the process just yet, and pausing this 3 months, we need to have bigger community conversation about the idea of changing these public processes. Thank you.
That's what we're here for. Thank you.
I just want to add real quickly, there are nonprofit organizations such as churches, a substantial amount of churches throughout the city of Lancaster that could use that.
That is true, and we could.
And they're not being, I work with multiple churches.
We could decide, Council.
You're not reaching out to them.
We could give it away, and at the same time, I would say that we're also trying to pay for a lot of things. this is a conversation about the future use of this parcel. There was no, we sent it out to every housing organization in the city that had been doing work. There were no proposals that came from any nonprofit housing
I don't believe
organization
that.
in the city, because they have a lot of projects that they're currently working on, and so there wasn't any interest. There was a commercial use that was proposed that was not a public use, and it was one bid. And so, just to say that there was a lot of effort that was put into getting this out to our nonprofit partners. There was conversation about sale prices. I mean, all of that could be negotiated in terms of a use that was in, that the neighborhood would be excited about, that council would be excited about, that the administration would be excited about, that would go through zoning, and that just didn't come to bear. And I don't think it's because of lack of interest. I think it's because of lack of resources at this particular moment. A lot of the organizations have really big projects that they're already working on with ARPA funds that they need to complete, and some of those projects haven't even started yet.
And the city is in desperate need of low-income subsidized housing. And I don't think that HUD or the Housing Authority would be more than happy to grab this to put some housing for the people in the city of Lancaster. They are desperate. There's more and more homeless people out there, so I don't think you're drawing the right audience. So take that into consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening.
Good evening. Me again. I live off 30. Diane Desmond.
Your name?
Yes, Diane Desmond. Hi. So I just wanted to further urge council to consider, when you're looking at this proposal, to consider a checks and balances system to ensure that current residents are prioritized over profit. I know that it looks like a very lucrative opportunity, but there could be some very real consequences for the current residents of the city. And I also would urge you to consider how this could potentially exclude voices of the public in this process of what happens in their own city. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So since this is a bill, I believe that I'll make a motion to move it to full council for consideration for the 8th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Council President. That is all community planning has this evening.
Thank you very much, Councilor Craig. The last committee this evening is the Committee of the Whole. We have 3 items on our agenda this evening. Councilors, the first is Resolution Number 24, 2025. This is authorizing a flag raising to mark Puerto Rican Heritage Month. An application has been made in a timely manner for a flag raising. And this is, I had it in front of me and I accidentally closed it during the course of our meeting and I apologize. An application was put in, I'm totally missing who submitted the application. Goodness gracious. It doesn't say it, which is why I missed it. I apologize, but a request was put in to fly the Puerto Rican flag, or do the, I'm sorry, the late hour is getting to me, to raise the Puerto Rican flag in honor of part of, yeah, nope. I'm sorry, November 18th, 2025, with the rain date of November 19th, 2025. Thank you very much. And this was actually requested by Councilor Jamie Royo. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm a little loopy. It's been a very long day, and I appreciate that. So anyway, this is to raise the Puerto Rican flag on the date of November 18th in front of City Hall. Councilors, any comments on the resolution? Comments from the public on the resolution?
Just one quick.
Ms. Gomez.
Just one quick question. November 18th through the 19th, is that like a mark date representing anything in the history of Puerto Rico that we can raise it on that date, or can you accept a more historical date.
Councilor Arroyo, this date was chosen for a particular reason?
Typically that week is considered National Puerto Rican Week.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yep, and so the date of the flag raising would be the 18th, and we're reserving the 19th for a rain date. Okay. Any additional comments from the public? Hearing none, I will make a motion to move resolution number 24 to our next council meeting on the 8th.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. Next item on our agenda for Committee of the Whole is Council Resolution number 23, 2025, recognizing April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in the City of Lancaster. This is an annual resolution of recognition that I am presenting. We typically invite folks from our YWCA, Sexual Assault Prevention Center, to come to council to address and to talk about any current events that they have going on for the month, statistics and information that's pertinent to city residents. And it's important that we note this every year. Any council comments on this resolution from the public? Hearing none, I'll make a motion that we move Council Resolution 23, 2025 to our next meeting on the 8th.
Second.
So a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And lastly, we have resolution number 32, 2025, recognizing Lafayette and Lancaster Bicentennial. This is an interesting historical resolution. This is a resolution designating July 27th through the 29th as Lafayette Days in the City of Lancaster in recognition of the bicentennial of Lafayette's visit to Lancaster on his farewell tour, 50 years after the American Revolution. There are many events happening around the city and also at Rockford for this event, and this would make this an official designation in the City of Lancaster for this historic event. Any additional council comments on the resolution? From the quickly dwindling public? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to move this to council on our April 22nd meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. That is the end of our committee agenda. Mr. Harris, you've submitted your clerk's report in writing, is that correct?
I have, Madam President.
Thank you. That's available to all members of council. Having concluded our business, I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I heard a motion. I'm sorry, I heard a second in there. Thank you very much. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. We're adjourned.
Happy birthday, Tina Campbell! Yes.